Welcome to Voices of Tech and Litigation with your host, Beken. This podcast will broaden your knowledge in the use of technology in business and our everyday world. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, chorusconsulting.net. Now here's the host of Voices of Tech and Litigation, Beken.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining in today. Hey, I have a good guest today, Dan Ramey. I'm not going to steal all your thunder, Dan. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. But
okay.
Dan Ramey and I go back a little bit. He's the owner of Houston Financial Forensics. And we met at ACFE, Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, and he had some really cool stories. But that's my quick intro, and I'll let you introduce yourself and tell a little bit about you.
Okay, thank you. Right. So I'm president of Houston Financial Forensics. I've been 11 years. I just had the company's 11-year anniversary just last week. So we have been involved in a lot of litigation issues, fraud investigations, cyber, different things, some marital stuff. I originally did not get into the marital stuff, but it seems to be popping up more, and it falls right in with the fraud and the litigation. So I just continue to do it. I also have taught at Baylor University. I taught 3 years for forensic accounting there, and I'm on my 10th year at the University of Houston teaching in the graduate program. So I have been president of the Houston IIA chapter. I'm involved in InfraGard, the Houston ACFE chapter. I've spoke at the national ACFE conferences. So I'm out and about, Ray.
Right. Oh, one other thing. I was actually a guest lecturer for you, 4 or 5 years ago in one of your graduate level courses on fraud. So yeah. Yeah, that was a fun time.
Well, I appreciate being there, but I enjoy it. It's a fun profession. Lots of changes, and we're going to talk about some of those today. Some of the things, that, especially in the tech world.
Cool. Well, I'm going to jump in.
Okay.
The huge buzzword going around technology-wise right now is AI, artificial intelligence. I mean, everybody talks about it, right? That's what's going on. What's going on in the world of AI on fraud investigations and open source intelligence?
So we've got quite a few things going on. AI is making things a little easier. Now, it doesn't do all of our job because we still have got to have that human element in it. We've got to verify what comes back. AI is a long, long way from perfect, but it gives us some answers very, very quickly and possibly some direction. So on the investigation side, one of the new tools, and I think we're going to talk about tools later, but is where companies have got software they've developed that we're scanning bank statements, credit card statements in, and at a very, very fast rate, it's giving us an Excel spreadsheet. Now, go back a few years, and we used to have to enter that by hand. Painful, slow, so prone to errors, very expensive, laborious, and nothing can be worse than boring than sitting there entering, hundreds of bank transactions and deposits and credit card transactions. So now we've got multiple tools out there that you can feed in a PDF and within a minute or two come back with an Excel spreadsheet that you can start working on. That is beyond amazing in our industry. On the OSINT side, OSINT stands for Open Source Intelligence, and that's everything that's out there about all of us. And in the US, we're either cursed or blessed, whichever way you want to put it, with a ton of available information. So if I want to look you up, Ray, I literally can go to Google, and within a couple of minutes, I can know your family, where you live, where you work, what your house looks like. I can fly it with Google Earth, Google Maps. I can see where you work. I can see where you have worked, what you do, if there's lawsuits, if there's organizations that you're part of. I can see what your social media accounts are. Now, depending on how you've got those set up, depends on whether I can look at them or not, obviously. But by using AI and OSINT, it can go in very, very quickly and help us narrow some stuff down. Like, tell me about Ray Beken in Houston, Texas. Boom, I've got a quick profile of you, right? I mean, literally almost that fast. So it's helping us really narrow some things down very, very quickly and get focused. If you're doing due diligence on a company through OSINT, tell me everything you know about XYZ company in Houston, Texas. And the next thing you know, you've got a list of links and all kinds of stuff. Give me the 15 most important things about XYZ company. Boom, you've got 15. I mean, it's amazing what it can do for you. Now, it doesn't replace us. It also doesn't mean that we don't have to verify that, because as you know, when you go to court, it's got to be factual. It can't be, oh, I got it off of AI. Okay, that dog's not going to hunt when you get to court. So we still have to do our legwork, but it gives us some starting points, and it gives us some very, very quick profiles, what we can do. Where we're going to get headed to is that we're going to end up with AI being able to look at some financial statements, look at those bank transactions, whatever. Our problem is, let me reverse that. The problem that I've got with it right now is the security and the privacy. You can't just load those up into anything. So you've got to be sure you've got some good borders, that client data does not become part of the large language model and take off out there and you divulge stuff that you shouldn't. So once I think we can get that solved and some confidence around that, it would be great to like load up those bank statements and say, find everything that appears to be a non-business expense. Boom. Okay, there's my starting point. I mean, that's going to be some of the value of it. It's going to take away some of the more staff level, some of the more laborious, some of the boring work, and let us focus on the issues at hand is where it's going to go from an investigation side.
Yeah. Well, AI, I mean, just like everything else on the planet, things can be used for good and things can be used for bad or nefarious things, right? So,
Exactly.
I mean, how are fraudsters using AI to commit fraud in the business world, the workplace, and that sort of thing? What are you running into there?
Well, great question. So a couple of things. You know, our phishing emails used to have misspellings and bad grammar and choppy language, and you knew that was a fake. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now you can put that in AI and it fixes it. And so our emails for phishing are getting better and better. You know, the text messages that I get every week that, hey, haven't talked to you in a while. Well, guess what? We're not going to talk now either. You know, or the other day, you know, I got some stuff about what they need to do. I got one this morning that I needed to approve a Amazon order for my Mac Airbook. Well, if anybody knows me, I don't use Mac for anything, or Apple,
Right.
period. Okay, so nothing against them. It's just that's not me. So I'm not buying that from Amazon. It just got a delete. And if I were going to do it, I would go on to Amazon's account. So people are getting better. They're finding more sources of information with it. You know, even if you use something as simple as Grammarly, it will fix all of your errors real quick. So regardless whether English is a first language or second or not at all, you can put stuff in, translate it, and then run it through Grammarly, and you got a legit email that somebody may read now because it looks appropriate. And they can find out who is who and what organization. Just the large language model has just got so much stuff in it that it can identify targets so much quicker than they used to be able to. Then you've got the deep fakes and the voice, and that's like a whole nother podcast session that creates problems for corporate America. It's a nightmare coming up, literally.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. I've seen different things of it on different like YouTube or Rumble type videos, and it's just crazy what's going on out there.
Over in Singapore, I think it was over in Singapore, they did a deep fake and they got like 20, I'm going to be off on this, like $26 million wire transfer. And this has been about 6 or 8 months ago. And it was a deep fake. It was the voice. And literally you could take our voice from what we're
Right.
doing and create a deep fake to call someone and go, hey, this is Dan. We need to wire transfer this money. And, as much as executives are out there and in the public domain, their voice is, they can take that and flip it around and call the treasurer and said, hey, we're working on a deal. Send this amount of money. And it's gone. Then he flipped into crypto and it's gone.
It's too good. It's like, it's getting crazy. Well, I'm going to ask you a question more about something. You've done a lot of fraud investigations, and one tagline that I've stolen from you, and I've used it, you gave me permission, is trust. Trust is not an internal control. I've heard you say that in the past. What can you do in a company to reduce the likelihood of employee fraud?
Interesting that you should ask, because I keep this on my desk. And I don't know that this will, it'll show up. Trust but verify. Okay. Right. It's a little printed. Friend of mine is a conference speaker. He had them printed. This isn't original of mine, but trust but verify. And Ronald Reagan said that. The irony of that is that the hometown of Ronald Reagan is Dixon, Illinois. A lady named Rita Crunwell stole millions of dollars from that city. And it's just kind of ironic that it happened in Reagan's hometown, but that's been prosecuted. She has served her time. She's out now. But the key is that you do a background investigation. What's the background of the people? Well, if you're dealing with cash, you need a financial credit report. You need to run background. I'm working on a case right now that the lady was on probation when she stole from our client. Okay, this isn't hard to go. They probably could have even caught that on Google. There's a chance that you didn't even have to run the background check. So know who you're hiring. That would be one. And they can be very clean. Some point they may go bad and start doing something. But then you need the proper internal controls in place. So don't ever give anyone the rubber stamp for the check to sign. Just don't. I mean, that you don't need to. You don't even need a rubber stamp. I hate those. I don't like petty cash. Okay, that's just too tempting for people. So internal controls where the president, the controller, the CFO, one of the founders, whatever, depending on the size of the company, has to sign all checks. If the check is greater than $10,000, whatever that risk number is, has to be 2 signatures on it. And that way it's more, there's more control over that. All invoices have to have a purchase order. All invoices have to have an approval on them. I mean, things just don't get paid and go out without it. New vendors get reviewed. Payroll. This is a simple one, and it's abused so much. Is something called a to from report on almost all the payroll systems. ADP, Paychex, everybody else that's out there, QuickBooks, etc. And it shows what payroll was last time for this individual and this time. So like I don't care if they change their home address. I don't care if they change the number of exemptions. But if their rate changes or they work more than a certain percentage of overtime hours, that is stuff you need to know. So before payroll gets released, you run that report, you take it to a supervisor, and they go, oh, why did Dan's Dan's per hour basis just go from $10 an hour to $15 an hour? We didn't give Dan a raise. Busted. Okay. Some of the stuff is so simple. And I do a presentation now that I wrote over the summer for a conference. It's called Left of Bang. And bang is a military term that says once we have an issue, we know how to handle it. The problem was the military was not training our Marines how to handle it beforehand. And what I'm trying to say is let's not get to court. Let's not go to jail. Let's stop it before. So let's use good internal controls and let's use data analytics. And AI is becoming a huge piece of data analytics because, and this isn't an endorsement for them, but Copilot along with Excel is like rockets. I mean, you can pull in a data set and tell Excel what you want it to do. You don't have to know how to run pivot tables. You don't have to know how to write formulas. You can just say, stratify this into 5 different categories. Boom, done. Like, wow. I mean, I look back at Lotus 123 version 1A, and I'm like, we were happy to make it print. Here now we're putting in directions, and Excel's doing the work for us. So, there's no excuse anymore for companies to say we can't do data analytics or we're too small for controls. Work around it. You've got to be creative. I've had SOC situations that were nightmares from a number of people involved, but we made it work that we could get around it. So controls that are in place, don't trust. And I don't mean like don't believe somebody totally, but trust but verify. And one of the lines, you can use this one too, it's about the process, not about the people. So Ray, we're friends. If you came to work for me, I would trust you. I'm still going to look, because at some point you're going to leave and Sally's going to come in, and I don't know Sally. So am I going to check her more than I check you? No, it's about the process, not about the people. And if people would not let that go and stay focused on that, we could reduce fraud so much, because very few cases do I see that they could not have been caught in the first one or two transactions they did. But they're just not checking.
Well, you meant during that you mentioned a couple pieces of technology. So expound on that. What are your favorite technology tools to help you in your investigations?
So I guess the two, and I kind of live in this world, Excel is it. I mean, I can do about anything with Excel. You can bring in data, you can bring in numbers, you can crank out numbers, you can make formulas. There's so much you can do with that. And now with Copilot, it's even more. The other one is IDEA, which is a data analytics tool. It's a lot like Excel, except for the fact it's built for audit and for investigation, and there is no limit. So while Excel now is almost unlimited, not quite, but almost, for most people it is, IDEA has no limits to it whatsoever. And so we could bring in so much more data than we want to. And the advantage is now, instead of having to look at documents as much and a sample of transactions, we can now look at almost everything. We can look at 100% of that population to see if there's been anomalies. You can use things like Benford's Law to see if there's anomalies. Sorry, couldn't get that out. You can look at highs and lows, most recent. You can create dates and times from date stamps on transactions to see if they were done Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, why the office isn't open. You shouldn't be working on the weekend, assuming that's like a normal practice not to work on the weekend. Why are there transactions on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock or Saturday night at 11 o'clock? Why? Those are anomalies. Those are ones that you go after real quick. So those are some things we can do. The other one that I'm absolutely in love with right now is the check scanning, because it takes us from, okay, this is going to take us 2 weeks to enter this with 3 people and this amount of money, to boom. And they cost, don't get me wrong, but the advantage of having that level of accuracy and that much information that quick is just beyond belief right now. And some of them have got AI built in that they will go in and start like they will follow transactions through to bank accounts. They will have lines that show where they go. It is amazing. So I've looked at some in the last 2 or 3 months that are just like, wow.
Yep, technology can make you more efficient. You just got to make sure you use it for the good and not for the bad. Isn't that right?
That's right.
I'm gonna jump. Before we close out. One of the things I've seen you speak like 3 or 4 times, right? And so you always have a couple of stories that are cool or almost humorous as to how did they not catch this. So that's one of the things that intrigued me about listening to you the first time. I was like, all right, I got to go meet this guy. So what are some of your favorite stories out there, things you've worked on?
Oh God, they go forever. And a lot of times, with the exception of a couple of cases, most people do not go to work to steal. And it happens after time, and they test the waters, and then no one's looking, and then off they go. Okay. And usually something triggers them. It's, we talk a lot in corporate about tone at the top. What does management do? How do they view fraud? How do they view integrity? What are they doing? Because accounting knows what management's doing. If they're playing with their expense account, accounting knows that. And so one case, I was with a public accounting firm. We had just finished their external audit, had been out of the field a couple of weeks. I say we, the firm, not me. And the CFO called the audit partner and said, we have a fraud. Do you have a forensic team that can come help? And he goes, yeah. So we got on the phone that afternoon. We talked. Lady had been abusing her American Express card. Okay. They thought that was the end of the ballgame. Turned out she was stealing 11 different ways. She was the controller. She had control over everything in that organization with the exception of revenue. And most of it had no approval process. Now, she had just told the auditors 2 weeks before, no one could steal. We have dual signature on everything. Everything is reviewed. Boom, 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 boom. None of that was true. And she had ghost employees. She had her daughter on the payroll. She was paying invoices for her son's company. She stole a truck. And you go like, okay, how could she do that? She also had control of all the titles and the insurance. And so she took the truck and gave it to her 16-year-old daughter. And we all know at 16 years old, we're all not that good of drivers. And in Houston, that is a nightmare. And had she had any kind of an accident, the lawyers would have owned that company. And they were heavily capitalized, deep pockets. But the registration, the license plate, and the insurance all went back to that company. So when she got ready to get the daughter a new car, she turned all of those over properly, put them in her name, traded vehicles, got her daughter a new car.
Wow.
So I mean, that was one. And, that one had petty cash. The key thing, and you go back to the verify, and we talk about the internal controls, her American Express card was abused horribly. And there were only 4 people in that firm that had American Express cards. So when the CFO got it to sign the check, if he would have literally, Ray, just lifted it up and looked at the front cover, it would have said, President, $1,500. Business development, $2,000. Head of engineering, $500. Controller, $20,000. That's a red flag. Okay. Flip it up one more time, and there's airline tickets and the names of the kids and travel places where they didn't go. She didn't travel. She stayed in the office. Literally, that would have been it. So he and I had a heart-to-heart, and I said, that is your responsibility because you signed it. He goes, nope, I'm contract. My job is just finance. Okay, well, if you're signing the check, it's your responsibility. So that is how easy most of these are. That would have stopped it literally on day one. Day one.
Right.
Another one was a company has extremely good internal controls. So you can still have good internal controls and still have a problem, but they have very good internal controls. A lady had set up 2 shell companies, one of them actually in her husband's name. They attended the Christmas party, the spring picnic. Everybody knew who he was, but for some reason it never locked into anybody in accounts payable that the check request was the name of the husband. So she embezzled just short of about $500,000, and she and husband got a divorce. She had been terminated from the firm, had nothing to do with this. It was a skill issue. And she was gone. They hated to let her go. They gave her severance. They gave her a health care package, yada, yada, yada. The day the divorce was final, he called the company and he goes, she's been stealing from y'all. And when I got out there, we thought it was just on her expense account. Turned out she had set up 2 shell companies that we found. So, it's even with good internal controls, people need to understand red flags and the trust, but verify. And they're like, oh no, she's right here. She's nice. She would never do anything. And so this is okay. Well, no, it's not. You really need to check everybody. The interesting thing, even on top of that, is family members are the worst because the trust is so high at that point. They're like, okay, I know how much they make. I'm not getting that. I'm going to partake in that. And things go south really, really quick.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of crazy. Well, I think we're kind of end of our time, Dan.
Okay.
I really appreciate that. I love the story. That's one of the things that I like about you. Before we do go, tell people how to get hold of you. Name, phone number, company name, email, web address, all that stuff.
So I am on LinkedIn, so I'm easy to find. Cell phone is 832-567-8601. Web address is houstonfinancialforensics.com. And email is dan@houstonfinancialforensics.com. And so if someone's looking for a speaker or talk about red flags or help educate their employees, I can do that. Conferences, community groups, whatever it may be. I'm just trying to get the word out so that we can cut some of this fraud down, because it is a distraction to the company and it's expensive. And the more we can cut that down, the better off we are.
Yeah, well, I've enjoyed working with you. Appreciate you calling and reaching out whenever you need our forensic expertise and our knowledge of the legal world. So
and y'all have always done an amazing job. So thank you.
All righty. Well, I appreciate your time. Have a good night.
Thank you, Ray.
Bye.
You've been tuning into Voices of Tech and Litigation with your host, Ray Beken. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, chorusconsulting.net. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.